everyone. It's Kristen from Swagger Magazine, and today I am joined by Kendall Toole, Peloton instructor extraordinaire and mental health advocate. Kendall, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's Women's Day today. I'm so happy to be sitting here with you.
Yes, it's a very special day. It's an important day. So it's good. I love sitting with strong women. We're gonna kick it off great.
Amazing. Now, I want to know how you first got started into the fitness world and how you ended up being a Peloton instructor.
It really, I mean, both things happened. When I tell you it was never a part of my plan, I was definitely a big 3 year, 5 year planner or so I thought in high school and college. Joke's on you. The older you get, the more you realize you can make a plan and there's a bigger plan that just ends up evolving anyway. But I got into fitness kind of just as a need to get through being broke in LA. I was working in tech and entertainment and I worked for a very well-known startup and the culture was not a healthy fit for me and it was a pretty toxic place to be. So at the time I've been boxing at that point from college all the way up until I'm going to say right now I'm like 23, 24. And my boxing coach was opening a fitness studio in LA and was like, hey, do you want to teach classes? I think you'd be good at it. Like you're good with people. I'm like, okay, sure. I need the money. Why not? I'm so broke right now. So I started teaching boxing fitness in LA. And then another big boxing fitness company came to some of my classes and I opened their LA studio after training in New York. And then after a year and a half of that, Peloton slid into my DMs. So go figure that. I remember Cody giving me the call after I auditioned and I will never forget this. And I get off the plane and I was going back to work off of Sunset Boulevard and it was a gorgeous California day, typical. And he calls me and he's like, hey, boo. I was like, hey, what's up? I'm super nervous because I knew I did all the interviews and whatnot. And he's like, so you got the job. Can you move in a week? And I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
what? Move to New York City and do all that. So that kind of just fell into my lap in many ways. And here we are now.
Wow. I love that it was Cody that told you
Me too.
that you got the job. I
Very
think that makes
iconic.
it even better, even better. Now, do you have a personal philosophy when it comes to exercise and fitness?
Yeah, mine evolved. Truly, fitness, especially in my college years when I was going through so much mentally and not really able to vocalize what that feeling was. Fitness for me was an escape. It was the place where I felt I could take some control and power back. Now, granted, that can go in another direction, in that direction of control where it can almost be a negative and we can go down that path as well. But it was definitely something that it gave me the ability to feel my own power. And it was the one time when I was working out, I could shut my mind off a little bit and get past these super intrusive thoughts and these like negative thought spirals, whatnot. And so for me with fitness, it always was rooted, and I'm grateful for this. It was rooted in creating a deeper connection with myself. Of course, growing up in the society that we live in and looking at magazines, and especially like the time that I grew up, Photoshop was everywhere, but we weren't talking about it, right? We didn't have AI filters yet. It was you'd open Teen Vogue. And I remember, and we've all talked about it, there's that Ralph Lauren ad that was so terrible. And they Photoshopped that poor model's waist so tiny. But I remember I had that photo in like one of my binders in school and thought like that's what I had to look like. So of course, fitness initially started to be like, I want to change my body and make it look like these, 6 foot tall, beautiful models, which I'm 5'4". There's a difference in makeup there. But really what it came back to in college was finding my power through fitness. And especially that change when boxing came into the picture. That's when I recognized, oh, wait, moving and connecting and fighting creates a whole different connection within myself I've never felt before. And I think that's where it stayed rooted for me through physical fitness.
Absolutely. Me too. And I even think since getting my Peloton bike, I got it kind of a year after COVID started, after what, because it was on back order for so long.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. You kind of start, with fitness for maybe some reasons that are not the best. And then it ends up being like, wow, this makes my mind feel good.
Yeah.
This makes, my body feel good. And I'm also challenging myself. So
Exactly.
I completely agree with you there. I want to know how you like to motivate your riders during your class. I know
Mhm.
sometimes you kind of yell at us, so
Yeah, I do. It depends on the energy of the ride for sure. It's an encouraging, I would like to think, I don't know, you can tell me, I'm very open to feedback. I like to think of when I do yell or I'm more intense, it's taking the energy of where we're at in the class. It's taking kind of that coach mentality. again, like being in a boxing ring, I like direct, even in all parts of my life. I'm a big direct feedback person. Like, don't sugarcoat it, don't kid glove it, don't be passive aggressive about it. Just tell me what's up. Like, what do I need to do and how can I get there? Because to me, it's the fastest way. It's a straight line, right? We can get where we need to go if we're honest through where we're at in our bodies, but there's power there as well. So the way I like to motivate, if I'm totally candid, a lot of my personal life in a veiled way comes into the motivation in class. I definitely have my own struggles and my own life experiences that oftentimes it's very interesting when I'm motivating or I'm speaking on something in class. I don't plan it, and it just kind of comes from essentially advice that I'm trying to learn myself. And I feel like there's a connection to other people deeper. I had to pull from that a lot during COVID because when we stopped having people in our classes and it was just me and 8 cameras, and you're thinking, how do I motivate these people in a time when I'm really struggling? And then I recognized, well, if they're struggling and I'm struggling, something's got to give, something's got to hit. So what would I tell them? And meanwhile, what am I trying to tell myself in the same process? And it ends up coming out, and hopefully, and it seems like it does, it connects to people in a really authentic way.
Again, that's why you are one of my top instructors. And your medal rides really, really push me. So, and it feels, I have to say, you know, taking the classes, even though it's technically virtual or sometimes I'm not doing a live class, I feel like I actually am there with you. So I think that's just, I don't know, some of the magic about Peloton personally.
It is. It's that energy. I think it's something you can, anytime you can break that fourth wall of the screen, it's so powerful. And it does. I think there's something about when you're sweating, you're already kind of out of your own conscious mind, right? You're moving your body so much, your brain cannot possibly judge what you're doing because you don't have the capacity to do that. You're hustling so hard on that bike. And so what's great is you can affect people, I think, in a more emotional, deeper way, almost like when they're in a movie theater, right? And you're so comfortable that you allow yourself to get lost in it. I think
Totally.
this can happen with Peloton. And that's why the beautiful part and my favorite part about the job is being able to connect to people so deeply in such an honest place, because we're all vulnerable. We're all sweating. We're all out of breath, but we're deeply in our humanity because we're so vulnerable.
Totally. I love that. Now I want to know how do you plan your classes, from the music to the workout? What can you share about that?
Totally. So we have 2 different types of classes. We have more fitness first classes, which are your traditional like hit and hills, Tabata, everybody's favorite, least favorite. And those I really go off of just essential training principles. It's tough to kind of create a plan sometimes because you're really trying to accommodate multiple skill levels in one class. So when I give ranges in that class, obviously I'm trying to work with someone who's, sometimes I have pro athletes that are taking my classes, and then I have someone who's newer at the same time. So giving the right ranges, but also allowing people and really pushing people to honor where their limits are and where their body's at that day. I know as a woman, since it is International Women's Day, dependent on the week that I'm in during the month, it can be a great hard workout, or it's like, if it's a couple days before my time of the month, I'm like, hey, I'm doing a low impact ride, or I'm just going to give different ranges and adapt to what my body needs. But for fitness first, I always focus on the actual programming. How are we doing it? What is our effort to recovery basis? How much are they breathing? How can I get them back into their breath so we can get the most out of this workout? And then when it comes to music-based classes, for me, playlist is first. It's great to ride and have a great program, but there's something about pushing at a chorus or at a beat drop that just feels so aligned in the soul. And it's great because with a bike, people who traditionally don't necessarily, how do I put this? They might not be the most rhythmic, right? They don't feel like they're confident dancers, but the coolest thing is when they're on a bike, their feet are clipped in and I give you the exact cadence, which is the beats per minute. So you are always going to be hitting the beat, and it brings everybody together. So it is that level of like alignment and satisfaction in a music ride where you can get a lot of confidence because you're on the beat.
Totally. So you're picking the music as well, like totally yourself.
Yeah. So this is actually really cool. Yeah. So all of the instructors, all of us, if there's music in a class, we're picking it. We have an incredible music team at Peloton that is always getting us new artists, new tracks, working licensing deals so we can play it in class. But when it comes to our classes, I'm always looking for new music. What do we have? And how do we tell a story within that music? So that's a big one for me, is like knowing when the flat road is, knowing when to give y'all a breath. And then for me, we're closing a class on a high. Like it's always something empowering or high energy, or like tonight for a metal class, it'll be really ragey, that song that you've been waiting to hear where you can just headbang and let it all out. because I want everyone to empty the tank by the end of class.
Oh, totally. I'm stoked. I'm so stoked. What advice would you give to someone who's, starting out, not just in Peloton, but just in their fitness journey?
And it's advice I need to still take myself to this day, remove expectation. Remove expectation as best you can. It's so hard. We live in a world where we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people. We're constantly getting information. We're getting feedback, whether it be through social media, whether it be through likes and follows and all these like little hits of dopamine we get. And it creates this sense of expectation that if I'm not getting this level of, whether it be validation or I'm not seeing the changes in my body in a certain timely manner or something shifts, that I'm not doing it right. And I'm going to internally kind of punish myself. Really, and it's a lifelong process, giving yourself that grace to understand it is a journey, and it is something, and it's cheesy to say that, but it really is something that it's an everyday investment in yourself. And it's those little bits of discipline, but it's also those little bits of self-love, because you're going to commit to tapping into that inner power, to tapping into, okay, so yeah, maybe I'm bloated today, but I just lifted whatever, and I'm proud of that. And it's that reshift of, rather than that shameful energy, that self-love, that self-empowerment energy that really makes the changes in people. And that's been the best thing, whether it be training people from boxing and watching their confidence, especially in women, change, or whether it's been training people with Peloton for multiple years and they'll come and share their stories and you're like, wow. Like I saw them 3 years ago before pandemic, and now I'm seeing them again now in a class, and they've just like completely bloomed. And it's like a cheesy thing to say, but they really have just evolved into this even more full self.
One of the reasons why it was important for me to start was really for mental health reasons, and just to get outside, let everything out. And I know that you are a big advocate for mental health as well. Can you share a little bit about, your journey and why you feel it's also important to connect that to your teaching?
Completely. I hid my experience for a very long time. And with mental health, there often comes a lot of shame, whether it come rooted from society or from our different cultures that we come from. There's this idea that asking for help and not being able to be this independent, self-sufficient person means you're less than, or you're less worthy. I will tell you, in my life's process through dealing with my mental health, and I will tell everybody, I talk about it all the time, I have diagnosed anxiety and depression. I was diagnosed with OCD when I was 11 and have found habits to get through that, but that really manifested later in the anxiety and depression. And then in my senior year of college, I was on the verge of contemplating, and trigger warning for everybody before I say this, but contemplating and partaking in suicide. So I have been to some very dark places. I had a lot of struggle coming out from that. It was about 3 months of my life I don't remember after that, after getting help. And I've shared this story, and having my parents and family support me has been huge. But they didn't even know the depth of how bad it was, because I still had shame. I still hid it. And it took truly coming to Peloton 7 years later after that experience and recognizing I get to have this really cool platform, but people, not wrongly, but I wasn't being fully honest. I was kind of promoting the perception that people would see of me and not sharing this massive part of who I am as a person. And to me, if you have a platform or you have any type of reach, I think there's a responsibility that comes with it, especially in the world we live in today. And so I just started opening up and sharing that story. And then it turned into mental health awareness classes. They have become this beautiful, wonderful thing. We now have mood rides on Peloton. I've done an anxious ride, a sad ride. I'll go back and take those sometimes and listen to my own advice. I hate taking my own rides, but I'm like, oh, that was right. Like I'll have my friends pressure me to do it. But it's been a journey. I just turned 30. It is something I will deal with for my whole life, but it's also, and I say this often, I feel like my mental health and all of the hell that I went through with it is a superpower, because there's a level of empathy and a level of love and compassion I can have for people, because I know what it's like to be in such a dark space. And you just want to see people thrive. You really want to see people understanding how brilliant and special and important their being here right now is. So 100%. That's the goal. That's definitely the goal.
Well, and you just never know, someone out there you might reach who really, really needs it. So I want to say thank you for sharing your story, because you look around now and it's so common, like so many people are struggling. So, I really appreciate what you're doing as well. Because I see it too. Even doing other interviews with people, it's it's big.
It's big and it doesn't discriminate against anybody. I think that's the thing. It's like just because it's invisible, right? Like it's not something people are going to promote. Like people can say, well, they don't look depressed. Listen, your friends the people in your life who look like they're thriving and have 7 businesses and doing great and have this contract and this and that, please check on them because it's usually the ones, and a sweeping generalization, but it's usually the people that are high achieving and always holding space for others that are really struggling on the inside. Because I spent many years of my life in past relationships trying to fix other people because I was so afraid of doing the work and fixing myself or distracting myself. And the truth is, it's like that journey of meeting that shadow self, that darker side, the things that may be uncomfortable and sitting with it. It's not a fun process. I'm not going to say, hey, it's hunky dory. It's work, but it is work that allows you to walk in and live life in such a whole human way that everything that comes after, not only are you thriving at your best because you know yourself well and you've honored that, but you have the power to affect the people around you. And you don't have to have a platform of hundreds of thousands or millions of people. Like Selena Gomez has done a wonderful job sharing her experience, but you don't have to wait till you're Selena Gomez.
Absolutely.
You can do that in your homes. You can be the one that's breaking the narrative about not going to therapy in your family. You can sit down with your grandfather and say, hey, I love you, I'm struggling. And they can be like, oh, that's interesting. Did you know that your great grandmother had this, that, and the other? And you recognize there's this kind of secret experience we all have, that it's through community and through connection and through compassion and doing that self-healing work and going to therapy and honoring ourselves, we can make that shift. And I hope we do that for this next generation, because the world we live in is pretty tough and
Totally.
We need to help support them through it.
On that note, do you have any advice for someone out there who may be struggling, maybe something that has helped you?
I mean, listen, years of therapy, we could go for days, girl. I need to eventually probably write all this down and put it somewhere for everybody. But definitely, I'd say the first thing that really was changing for me, and I do this every day, and sometimes I'm not great at it, and when I don't do it, I definitely notice a shift, is gratitude journaling. There's this great app. It's called the 5-Minute Journal. They have an app, or they have the actual one that you can order from Amazon. Yep. I know it's been kind of popular on TikTok, which makes me so happy to see, but it's great. You say 3 things you're grateful for. You say an affirmation for the day and a couple like small manageable goals that you want to achieve that will make the day great. And I talked to a friend about this actually at the studio the other day. And I said, it's no different than like makeup where you put on a primer. It's no different than a good skincare routine. It's no different than warming up before you work out. When you prime your brain, especially the moment you wake up, when it's not really sure if we're awake, are we asleep? It's kind of that beautiful lucid state. You can literally prime it and hack it and say, this is how we're going to see the day. We're going to see it from a place of abundance. Because when we have so many things pulling our attention and so much pressure, it's very easy and it's very human to go down a negative path because we're trying to self-protect. We're thinking, we're cave people and there's going to be a saber-toothed tiger, so we have to protect ourselves. That can get out of hand. So when you prime yourself with finding that gratitude, and it can be something simple like my dog's fur is soft, or like, it can be little things like that. And it's actually better to find the small stuff. I've found that's really, really helpful. Definitely being able to take time in silence and kind of parenting yourself, understanding, and it takes practice, but when thoughts come up or triggers come up, rather than riding that emotional reactionary wave, taking that beat and saying, what part of me is this triggering? Like what part of myself? And almost picturing yourself as a little kid and like little you, and what would you tell them if they were scared because they feel rejected? What would you tell them if they were scared because they didn't get picked on whatever team? Well, those narratives continue as we get older. We just think they're more complex, but it's still rooted in the same thing. So having that compassion for yourself to saying, okay, you're right to feel that way, but it's okay. And we've learned X, Y, and Z, and we've made it this far in our lives, and we're going to get through this too. So it's almost like reparenting yourself in a way where you honor that scared part of yourself. You don't avoid it. And you give it a lot of compassion and grace to be like, it's okay to feel that, but here's what we're going to do. And I'm going to hold your hand through it. And so those are 2 things, the self-talk is huge. The gratitude journaling is huge. And then consistent physical movement. It's so good for your brain. It's so good to just, whenever you're really feeling it and you're like, oh, I'm just fed up, move your body, do some push-ups, do some abs, dance around, put on a playlist you love. Just get your body doing something else, because your brain changes to your external stimulus. So if you give it a different stimulus, it will change that thought pattern. And we do have control over that. And that's a really empowering thing when you learn that.
I love that. That's really, really good advice.
Yeah. I mean, I could literally go on for days. I will tell you, like, there's all somatic skills and breath work and breathing techniques, but there's so much available to us. And I think that's the goal, is just to share that as much as possible. You know, therapy, I will stand by all day. I think everyone should go, but I know the challenge. Not only is it expensive, not only is it hard. I mean, it's like dating. It's so hard to find the right therapist, let alone one that's available. So obviously doing that, supporting yourself with positive content, but being able to do some of those things yourself. Gratitude journaling, easy to do. Movement, easy to do. All of that is really available.
Totally. That's really, really great advice. And I love that. I think I'm going to start doing the journaling thing myself, because that's a really good idea. Every class, you end your class with a quote. And I want to ask you why you do that and who inspired that. I believe it's a quote from your dad.
It is a quote from my dad. And it's been a family motto for a long time. So I used to close all my fitness classes out with this, even before I came to Peloton. But where it's rooted from is my dad would say, and it's kind of a family motto, they can knock you down, but they can never knock you out. And it was just this, not only a concept of resilience, but a concept of choice, right? We can choose to get back up, or we can choose to stay down. The power happens in that choice. When you have any form of a struggle with your mental health, whether it be a season or whether it be something that's diagnosed and chronic and a part of your makeup, it's a constant battle. It's a constant fight. There are great days where you think, oh, I fixed it. Or like even great seasons where you're like, life is going great. I haven't had to deal with it. And then it'll come back, or it'll show itself in a different way. So that quote really hit home for me. And I heard it growing up, but when I moved back home right after my breakdown in college, it was right around Thanksgiving. And all of this is a hazy mess, but this was one moment that I do remember. I could not get out of bed for a couple of weeks. I couldn't shower. I couldn't take care of my hygiene. Obviously, my parents were gravely concerned. And I remember my dad came up to my room, and my mom had tried to get me to move, and that just wasn't happening. And my dad leveled with me, and he sat next to my bed, and he was like, listen, kid, he's like, I love you to pieces, but I need you to start moving, and we got to get you into therapy, or we can do inpatient, but I'm going to have to do that because I love you and we need you to be well. And he was totally right, and such a great dad, and again, honest and direct and compassionate. And he said, what do we do in this family? He's like, I'm going to start it. And he's like, they can knock us down. He's like, this can knock you down. Oh, I can cry. Oh, every single time I see this story. And, yeah, it's so beautiful because it's been rooted in what I do and why I share what I share. And then he said, but it'll never knock us out. And he said, I need you to make the choice to not get knocked out right now. And I was like, okay. And then I started getting a shower, and I started taking care of myself, and I had little wins, and I would, then I could go downstairs and get breakfast. I mean, it was like very, very struggle bus for quite some time, but we did get there, and I got through therapy and continued on. And now I understand why. You go through these dark chapters, you go through these dark challenges and changes in your life. And so it's so easy for us to say, well, why me? I don't deserve this. Like, there's always a lesson. There's always something beautiful hidden in that. And it might take time to get there, but now I understand why. And so what's beautiful is I get to close my class, and I did this even in my audition, and I close it with that quote. And I have people kind of throw punches, because that's where I came from, and put their hands up at the end. The amount of people who have it either tattooed, or even this past week, a man came up and he's dealing with his second round of chemo for brain cancer. And he started tearing up, and he was like, that quote from your dad, he's like, that's what it's, whenever I'm in radiation, it's like right in front of me. And it's been so beautiful to see my dad's words that saved me and got me moving. It's so important that I close out every class with that, because I just want that same energy to permeate to as many people as possible, because we are in it, and life's freaking hard, but it's worth it.
Totally. And I love that you do that. It feels good at the end of the class, I have to say. So, and that's really a beautiful story. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course, of course. I'm at the point in life now where I'm like, okay, if tears come, they come. Like we're just in it. And that's the beautiful thing is being able to have gone through so much. And all of those pieces of myself I used to run and shy away from or feel shame for or think I have to have this mask on, I have to have it all together. And the amount of life that's so much more fulfilling because I don't hide those parts anymore. Or even when I feel like I'm starting to sink back into that, I'm like, no, 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 no. We've grown beyond that. We know that humanity should always lead and your heart should always lead. And that's the way to go about it. And it does. And it's beautiful to see that. I feel like that helps other people do the same. Mm-hmm.
Totally. And I wanted to, on that note, I just wanted to share with you that your Linkin Park class,
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I felt so light after that class. I'm a huge fan of their music, first of all, but that class is almost like a therapy session just for me. So I just want to say thank you for that because and you know about Chester, the lead singer and stuff. So
Or
yeah, just that class is like a little therapy session for me. So whenever I need it, I know that it's there. So
I hear that. It's very interesting. I hear that feedback. I've heard that from so many people. And I've done a lot of artist series and I love everyone I've done rides for. But that was something so special because that music I heard always growing up and I loved it. And it reminds me of my brother. I remember he's a huge Linkin Park fan. He taught me how to drive in a terrible community college parking lot with like crawling, blasting. And I was so nervous. And he had like a souped up Scion. It was like a whole thing. It was very, I forget what year it was, but it was a blast. And so I already had this beautiful connection and it reminded me so much of my brother. And then as I've progressed through my life, I would always go back to these songs and you see what Chester wrote and how he and Mike Shinoda and all the guys, like they created music that was tackling the most human experience. And nobody was talking about the depths of what was going on. And the fact that Chester continued to show up and continue to sing those songs every night and share that connection with people, I think that's why their music permeates and it's still so special to all of us because even subconsciously we knew someone understood. Mm-hmm. And it's devastating how it all turned out with Chester and, you know, for his family and for the band and whatnot. But it's such a beautiful thing. We have his music and we have his words. And for me, that class, I was so nervous before it because I knew how important it was. And so it makes me really happy to know how many people it's connected to, because I think we all felt, if you were really deeply into Linkin Park, you've been through it. Like you got stuff going on, and it's so incredible how music can come together and bring people together and heal. And then when you get to move with a community as well, it adds just a whole other special layer to it.
Totally. Totally. No, I just wanted to let you know though. So it's nice to hear that other people are feeling the same way too. To kind of like flip the switch a little bit, I wanted to know if you have a favorite class to teach. Is it like, you know, boxing? Is it cycling? Is it dependent on the music?
I mean, as y'all know, I love aggressive music. The fun part is I really love being a girl. I love the feminine side. I love all that stuff. But there's something so freeing about like, yeah, I have anger. Yeah, I have angst. Yeah, I can hit something. And allowing that like very fierce part of my femininity to be there. So really, I love any class that's like getting ready for like, it's just pump up stuff. So if it's intense, heavy hip hop, I love a good hip hop ride. There's something different about the beat. And when the bass is hitting in the studio, I would say a good hip hop ride. I love shadow boxing, but it's so exhausting to teach because I'm talking and punching and all of the things and cueing at the same time. The Eminem shadow boxing was our first live shadow boxing class, and that hit in a sweet spot as well. And then honestly, the Linkin Park ride's up there. So I would say if it's heavy rock, pop punk, because it's just fun to go back to like everyone's little emo phase.
Yep.
All had. And then a good hip hop ride. Those are probably the top.
I love it. I'm just going to throw it out there that, you know, if you want to do a Blink-182 ride.
I know. Everyone's been asking. Listen, I think they're putting new music out and it's always helpful. Fun fact, if an artist is putting out new music or is about to go on tour, it's usually when we end up getting an artist series because the label is super stoked about wanting to promote what they're doing. It just makes a lot of sense. So
they are touring.
I know. Soon. So I've been asking. I'm not confirming nor denying. I know I know it's on the radar. So I'm hoping to. I so feel you.
I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna shoot my shot with Kendall since I'm talking to her. So cool.
I'm down for Blink any day. Yep.
Love it. Do you have a pre or post class ritual?
Ooh, that is a really okay. Well, there's one that people kind of know about, and it's because okay, I hate coffee. I don't actually love coffee, but when I moved to New York City and I got this job, I recognized I need a little jolt before I teach because it's adrenaline, you have all these cameras. And candidly, there's a lot of days I don't want to work out and do my job, but my job is working out. So I'm like, okay, we got to get it together, especially early mornings. So we have this, it's a very intense cold brew. I don't enjoy drinking it, but I will tell you, it is like the second it hits the back of your mouth, you're just like, and we're up. Like every cell is buzzing. You're like, let's go. So I always take about a swig or two, or sometimes more. One time I chugged it on camera and I said some things, which was probably not great, but it all went viral on TikTok. And I was like, cool, 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 cool. Let's do a little less next time. But yes, I do a little bit of chug of cold brew. I always stretch a little bit. And one thing I do too is I take a moment before class and I just try to get out of my own head. And I just kind of take a moment, really like a prayer moment. And I'm just like, listen, whatever is supposed to be said, let it come out of me. Let me not overthink whatever is supposed to be released and talked about. I'm ready. Let's go. And I think that always helps too. Take the pressure off of, you have 8 cameras, you have thousands of people live. It's very easy to get in your head, especially when I started at the beginning, when you realize the pressure and you realize how many people all over the world have this and are going to understand every word that you're saying. And if you say something, everyone's going to know it. And it's going to be turned into a clip that then someone's going to put on social media. So you're just like, all right. So there's a level of like release and just trust in that process for sure. But I'd say a couple swigs of cold brew, depending on the day and depending on the class. Even though I don't love it, it does work. It works.
I feel you. I'm due after this for my afternoon coffee. So
yep, like the coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
and I have a bath of Stanley filled with iced tea. Like I make super intense dark iced tea, no sweetener. And that's my drink of choice throughout the day.
That's so funny. I want to know if there is anything that you have not done in your career or it could be personal or in your career, something you have not done yet that you would like to do.
Oh, I have yes, a lot. I think there's so much more. I love what I do now and I think it's absolutely fantastic and I want to keep doing it as long as I possibly can. But I went to film school at USC. I love storytelling. I've always wanted to produce and create TV and film content. So that's something I would really love to do and I'm hoping to do in the coming years. Weird dream, another random thing, just once. Don't need a career out of it. Just once. I want to do like a vocal on like an EDM track and be like, yep, did it once, had a blast, great song, and then never do it again. Just for fun. It'd be a blast. Goodness, what else career-wise? I think that I'd love one day to have a podcast. I think it'd be great to get to invite a bunch of my friends and chat real life stuff and then also chat stupid pop culture. We won't get into all of the craziness that's going on right now between Bravo and the drama, but still fun to talk about. And then yeah, sky's the limit. I'm grateful. I've gotten to design capsule collections of clothing. I want to continue to do that. Creating things that empower people. Really, sky's the limit. And I'm excited about that. I like that I've rejected trying to control from a 5-year, 3-year plan. I've learned you can make the plan and it happens anyway. So I'm just looking forward to what opportunities come across.
Totally. And I'm here for that. And I cannot wait to see what you do next. Now, last question that I have for you is there anything that we can expect from you Peloton wise upcoming? You can, I don't know, spill a little bit of tea.
I can't say much without someone getting really mad at me. There is a really fun plan upcoming this summer.
Okay.
There's something in the works with a good friend of mine that would be a really cool experience. This is so veiled. I'm so sorry. This is such a tease.
That's okay.
Let's see. And I also will be filming something this summer that I'm very excited to go film. So those are the 3. There's actually a lot of great stuff coming up, Peloton, content-wise. Some of what we have planned for members, some of what we have planned for the community. So it's going to be an epic summer. It's going to be a really epic summer.
I cannot wait to see what you do next. I want to say a huge thank you for being so vulnerable and for being so inspiring. I can't wait to take your class tonight, Metal 9 p.m.
I will see you on that leaderboard. It's going to be, oof. Yeah, it'll be epic. It's the first time we've done a metal ride. Probably it's been a couple months.
Is it a 20 or a 30 minute?
Oh no, it's 30. Like, that's what I'm saying. I got to go and like do some hip thrusts and glute activations and open up the hips a bit because it's going off
Amazing.
tonight. Yeah.
Amazing. I can't wait. Well, thank you so much. It was a treat to talk to you. I could talk to Kendall for hours. So
I know. I'm like,
just
wait, when I come to Toronto, though, I really do need to come to Toronto. I haven't been and I've heard such amazing things. If I come up and be like, hey, I'm here. Where do I go? Do you want to go grab a drink? Like, yeah,
hit me up. Hit me up.
please. I would love that. Thank you. This was such a blast. I so appreciate it.